Hey everyone, this is Charlie and you're watching The Burrow. I hope you're all doing well. Last year for NaNoWriMo, I took on the challenge of writing a novel in a month, all right? Like I'm sure many of you may have done last year and are planning to do in just a couple weeks here in the future. After completing NaNoWriMo, I was happy to find that I just about had a completed book at the end of the assignment, so I wanted to go ahead and keep with it and edit it and sharpen it up and add and subtract, and I'm repeating myself, but anyway, eventually, as of about 2 months ago, I had a completed manuscript, and so I sent off my manuscript. I'm not going to talk about which company I sent it off to, it doesn't really matter, but I don't know why, I still had the romantic notion of being able to publish sort of traditionally, and I just thought it'd be a cool way to go if I could get it done that way. And anyway, so I sent it off, like I said, just about 2 months ago, and about 2 weeks ago, I got a letter back saying thank you very much for your submission. We enjoyed reading your work or whatever, but we just don't think there's a market for it. Long and short, there's not a market for that kind of work. And to be honest, it's something I knew when I was writing that piece, pretty much from the time I set out writing it at the beginning of NaNoWriMo. Anyway, I plan to publish it in one way or the other soon-ish, so I'll talk about it more when the time comes, but it's not really the point. What I want to talk to you about today, and what this got me thinking about, is how important it is to be able to take criticism well. And I think that applies whether you're, no matter what field you're in. And it's not even necessarily just an art thing, I think. I've always found that professionally, when I wasn't working as a writer, when any job I've done, it's really, really important for you to be able to take criticism well. Now, I like to think of myself as a writer as being like one of the least precious people I know about my writing, right? But who knows if that's the case or not. People, particularly artists, are really precious about the things they create, and it's just the way of it, right? You put so much time and effort into basically putting this thing that is born of you out into the world, and it has to do with confidence, it has to do with that work, it has to do with so many different things. And so of course when somebody knocks it down, they don't want to publish it, or they say they hate it, or whatever the case may be, it's easy to respond really negatively and really sort of in a way you shouldn't be responding. Now, I think for the most part, one of the best ways you can sort of break yourself of this habit is if you've never worked professionally as a writer, whether it's just freelance or you're doing, whether it's just like a freelance job every now and then here and there, or you're doing full-time freelancing, or you're a full-time professional writer, I think a good editor will really break you of being too precious of your work really, really quickly, because you don't have time to sort of sulk when you have to pump out 10 articles a day or something like that, particularly if you're doing SEO or something like that, or if you're writing press releases and it's really hot, so you need to turn it around really quickly. You don't have time to sit there and be like, well, I wrote it this way and it was really good, and the damn client, like, you just don't have time for it. And so it's something that you can really apply to your own personal work when you are trying to get your own things published, is that, yeah, sometimes people aren't going to like your stuff, or they're not going to want it. And there's a big difference between liking and wanting, right, when it comes to trying to sell your art. Now, that being said, of course, there is something to drawing a line in the sand and saying, you know what, thanks for your input, but it's crap. I don't agree with what you're saying. You maybe just don't get what I'm trying to go for in this story, or maybe just this isn't your thing, right? Yeah, there's definitely something to be said for that, and it's really, really important for you to be able to stand up and fight for a piece when you really believe in it. And I really want to point out that you need to be able to pick your battles, particularly if you're doing a lot of freelance stuff. But if it is your own work, there is a lot to be said about saying, you know what, no, this is how I see the piece, this is how I feel it needs to be published, this is how I feel like this section needs to go, I'm not going to edit it because you don't like it. Like, if you really, really believe in it, by all means fight for it, get pissed off, fight whatever. But what I see too often, and I see this both in sort of like the writing circles that I'm in, and with sort of like the vlogging community that I'm part of sort of on my main channel, is that people get really, really mad when somebody leaves a thumb down on your video, or they leave a comment that is a little bit critical of the work you're doing. And if you're too damn precious about every little thing you put out there, and you never have the humility to say, you know what, maybe this person is onto something. Maybe I didn't do that in as good a way as I could have, or maybe that wasn't as clear as it could have been, or maybe the exposition is too much here, or you're not getting enough character here, or whatever. If you're never able to open up and say, you know what, maybe people are onto something, two things are going to happen. One, I don't think you're ever going to grow as an artist, because a lot of times that feedback is good feedback, and people are pointing out things that you really should be changing. But there's also the problem of, and this goes back to choosing your battles, especially now when we can connect with so many people on the internet through vlogs, and we can use it to promote our books, our blogs, sort of any sort of creative endeavor we're a part of, is that community is really, really, really essential. So particularly if you want to sort of build that community around your work and get people excited about your books or your blogs, so that they sell, so that they're viewed, so they're shared, whatever, taking that sort of criticism seriously, and sort of sometimes just sort of being like, okay, well, can't please everybody, and sort of just moving on, it's going to be sort of essential to your success, I think. And again, that applies to whether you're doing videos or written work or comic. And yeah, that's really all I have to say about it. Now, I should point out, just for the sake of complete transparency, from the time I received that rejection letter to just about 2 days ago, I sort of just refused to write anything. I was just gutted, right? I was gutted. And despite the things I said, where I knew there maybe wasn't really a market for it in the traditional sense, and I was probably going to have to self-publish, I was gutted, and so I stayed away from it. So in addition to sort of all the things I talked about, just make sure that if you do get a rejection, things don't land the way you want them to, whatever, you don't let it sort of paralyze you. And that's something we've talked about before with the whole fear feeding into writer's block and things like that. So anyway, guys, that is all for me for today. Let me know what you think about this. Tell me about some of your rejections. Tell me about some of the criticisms you received and how you've dealt with them, how you deal with them. And quick pimping out here of the partner on this channel, Emily's work, Kingdom Come, which is a new webcomic that's been going for, I think, just about 6 or 7 weeks now. Please check it out. That information will be in the description below. And after you're done reading what is turning out to be a really wonderful comic, go write something awesome. It was like I had all these ideas in my head that were backed up that I just couldn't get out, and it became like this sort of, I felt suffocated by all of the ideas that were suddenly springing into my head when I couldn't actually put them anyplace. So